be a big fish. This is called the Salmon of Knowledge. It was brought to Belfast by a man named John Kindness. It has 33 scales, and each one tell a different story of Belfast's history. Now the reason it was brought here was to celebrate the return of wildlife to the River Lagon, which we are about to cross over. Now this return of wildlife wouldn't be possible without the structure on our left-hand side. This is the Lagon Weir, constructed in 1994 at a cost of £14 million. The Lagon Weir keeps the River Lagon at an artificially high tide, as it is one of the highest tidal rivers in the world. So we've crossed from County Antrim into County Down by way of Queen Elizabeth Bridge. And we are now in an area known as Queen's Island. This is actually reclaimed land made out of mud that was at the bottom of the River Lagon. Merchants needed to make the shipping lanes wider and deeper. Straight ahead of us is the Odyssey Pavilion. It's Belfast's most successful Millennium project, and it cost £80 million to build. Inside there's an IMAX cinema, several bars and restaurants, a few clubs, and also it is host to the W5, an interactive science exhibition which answers the who, what, where, when and why of the science world. Adjoined to this building is the Odyssey Arena. This is an 8,000-seater arena. Many famous artists have come to play here, and Rihanna is coming in the autumn time. Now it's also host to Belfast's newest sport, which is ice hockey. Now the problem with ice hockey in Belfast is not many people here can actually balance on a pair of skates, never mind play ice hockey. So we need to go all the way to America, Canada and Russia, and we rounded up a team. But the next problem we had was naming that team. Believe it or not, the first name put forward was the Belfast Bombers. This is horrendously inappropriate. Other names included the Belfast Bullets. The men who suggested these names were asked to leave promptly. But they have since been named the Belfast Giants, after the mythical giant Finn McCool.
Well, in a way,
so here we are, we're entering into the Titanic quarter of Belfast, so named after the ship. Now over £3 billion has been invested into this waterside development, and at present it is the largest waterside development under construction in the United Kingdom. Now keep an eye straight ahead, you can see the Titanic Centre. Notice the design of it. It's designed in the way of backing onto one another. This gives you an idea of the sheer scale of the ship was. Now the Titanic Centre will be finished in 2012 for the centenary of the Titanic's sinking. It will also be host to Belfast's first Titanic Museum. There are over 70 museums in the world for Titanic already, and Belfast is about to get its first one. So on our left, this red brick building are the old drawing offices of Harland and Wolff. It was here that Thomas Andrews and William Peary would draw the design for the Titanic and its sister ship, the Olympic. Now we're taking a slight detour today. If you look over your left shoulder and see this large warehouse building with large funnels on the top of it, this was the old Harland and Wolff paint wall. This is where parts of ships would have been painted before being grafted onto the boats. Now the reason for the detour today is it has recently been bought by Universal Studios and is now an indoor film set, with such films as Your Highness being filmed here. And more recently, including today, the Game of Thrones series is being filmed here. Other parts of the Game of Thrones series are filmed elsewhere in Northern Ireland, such as Tullymore Forest Park and the Mourne Mountains. Now if you keep an eye out to your right hand side, you can see the two Belfast giants, Samson and Goliath. They strive what is the largest dry dock in the world. Now half the dock has been opened in the last week. Samson came to Belfast in 1969. Samson stands at a height of 96 metres tall and is also 140 metres wide. Goliath, the bigger slightly bigger to arrive in Belfast than she was in 1975, and is 106 metres high and also 140 feet wide. It will have a lifting capacity of roughly 16 oldest Royal Navy ship still in commission. On arrival in Belfast, somebody thought it prudent to remove the 6-inch naval guns from it and the engine. But what we would have done with the 6-inch naval guns, I don't know. But if you take a look up and to the left, you'll see the White Star House. This is a reference to the White Star Line, the company that owned Titanic and its sister ship, the Olympic. Keep an eye out to your left after this building, you can see the Titanic graving dock. Pump house as well, and the pump house could have pumped out 21 billion gallons of water in just 100 minutes. This is a huge feat of Victorian technology. Keep an eye out on your left hand side. You will be slightly over your shoulder, you'll be able to see the railings. So from the pump house to this point is actually how long the Titanic was. This is 882 feet and 9 inches long. The Titanic was also 92 feet wide. Whenever she was going in for sea trials in 1911, she would have been the largest moving object in the world, and indeed also one of the heaviest. Her tonnage was 46,328. Now the ship cost £4.6 million to build, but this was back in 1911 and there would be a lot more in today's money. And if you were a worker on the Titanic, one of the 3,000 that worked on the ship over its 3-year construction, you could have expected to earn up to £2 a week. If you were a skilled worker, if you were an unskilled worker, you could have expected to earn up to £1 a week. This is because workmen were paid by rivet. Another look to your right at the Titanic pump house. Belfast response is, well, she was fine when she left here. If you want to know what the problem with her was, ask the English captain or the Scottish navigator. Again, on our left-hand side are the two Belfast giants, Samson and Goliath. Now, with the decline of shipbuilding in Northern Ireland, these two cranes were actually going to be deconstructed, but many residents petitioned it and wanted them to remain as part of the Belfast skyline. So alternatives had to be thought Arts company at the minute, looking to do bungee jumping off one of them into the largest dry dock in the world. Luxury ship.
We were at the...
And it took first and second class passengers.
Dock pump house. So that was number 4. Next would be Parliament Building.
Now we're going to head up to Belfast Working Parliament Building, indeed Northern Ireland's Working Parliament Buildings, Stormont. But before we go there, we're going to have to take a short trip up the Sydenham bypass. But if you look straight ahead, you can see 2 yellow bollards. These bollards represent Belfast's ropeworks. Look at the ornate concrete design on the bottom of them of rope. And take a quick look to your left and see if you can see a white building in the hills. This is actually Stormont Estate. This is where we're heading to in about 15 minutes. The Belfast roadworks used to export up to 75% of the world's rope. So we're turning onto the Sydenham bypass. The Sydenham bypass is Belfast's oldest dual carriageway, and it was opened up in 1959. Aircraft, and they took their first commercial aircraft. Sorry, excuse me. They built planes 2 through to 7 in the world and took their first commission from the Wright brothers. Now the initial design was changed ever so slightly. Wheels were actually put onto the bottom of the planes so that to make for an easier landing. If you've seen the original Wright brothers finish, you will note that the plane actually crash lands. So from this point on the Sydenham bypass, any land you see to your left is actually reclaimed land from the sea. It was to be given to the city by the shipping firm Holland and Wolff. Coming up on the right, 2 green tin roofs. And this is home to the Glen Football Club, or any Americans who are on Glen Soccer Club. Steve export is missiles. This is because missiles are much more profitable than planes. As one is launched, it needs replaced. But since then, business has been flourishing within the city of Belfast. Now we would take the road that runs parallel with this one, we would end up in a small town called Hollywood. And Hollywood is one of Northern Ireland's sports stars, and his name is Roy McIlroy. Roy McIlroy is a golfer, and he's recently won the US Open. And if you were to walk down the streets of Hollywood, you wouldn't be able to help but see his face beaming at you from every shop window. They're very, very proud of him down there. And if you're on some days, if you're lucky enough, you can see him driving into the centre of Belfast along the Sydney bypass in his white Land Rover. So we're going to head out to the east end of the city. And you famous people who came from this end of the city. First of all was George Best. Second was C.S. Lewis, the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And third up was Van Morrison. Now Van Morrison had a song about taking apples from the butcher, and it said that these apples belonged to, sorry, this orchard belonged to the Reverend Ian Paisley. And as well, one of the buildings looking for the nation of Northern Ireland. In 1896, the first railroad was to be introduced in the island of Ireland, independent from the rest of the United Kingdom. This bill was to fail and to forward to Bordeaux, so plans for the third one being drawn up in 1912. So in 1913, the man Sir Edward Carson was this ruler politically. With a small group of people who also opposed the bill, he set up what was known as the Ulster Volunteer Force in 1913. This was a small militia ready to take up arms against the government if need be. But the Royal Army is in opposition to the Irish National Volunteers. The Irish National Volunteers were great in number, but they weren't as well armed and trained. It seemed that Ireland was on its way for a civil war. The outbreak of World War I in 1914, Edward Carson opened up his UVA to show his allegiance to the Crown. So they became the 36th Ulster Division. Now, not to be outdone, John Redmond, the leader of the Irish National Volunteers, had given a momentous speech. After this speech, 90% of his Irish National Volunteers enlisted and became the 10th and 16th Irish Divisions. So the 10th Irish Division and the 36th Ulster Division were actually to fight side by side at the Battle of the Somme. It was hoped they would get along a little bit better after this battle. Sadly, this wasn't the case. At the end of the war, the Third Home Rule Bill was to be introduced, but with one major proviso. This was the 6 counties that are now Northern Ireland the chance to opt out of becoming an independent Ireland. This, they were given 1 month to do so, but it only took them 2 days. This month was known as Ulster Month, but it only took them 2 days to get across the Irish Sea and tell the King of England that they wanted to remain part of Great Britain. This led to the formation of Northern Ireland on the 8th of December 1922, technically for the second time. The formation of Northern Ireland, what is now the Republic of Ireland, was known as ERA. But there was a civil war there, 1922 to 1923, between two factions. One was a pro-treaty faction, who decided it would be best not to have a war and fight over the 6 counties of the north, and there was an anti-treaty faction as well. The pro-treaty faction won out, and this led to the birth of the Republic of Ireland. There'll be a brief security check. But don't worry, give an innocent smile, or if you are a suspicious character, just tie your shoelace or something. Be back with you in 1 second, folks. Floors, 4 of which you can see. There's an attic floor and 2 subterranean floors. 7 floors, 1 for each day of the week. On completion of construction, there were 366 trees planted here. The building finished construction in 1932, which was a leap year. It's also thought to be exactly 1 mile from the bottom step there, right down to your right hand side, to the bottom of the Prince of Wales Avenue. But it has recently been proven by Google Maps that it is several meters short, so if Arnold Thornley wasn't in his grave, this would be sure to put him into it. So during the Second World War, this building had to be camouflaged from the German Luftwaffe, and it was coated in a mixture of black bitumen and, believe it or not, cow manure. Now, it was thought that the cow manure would make it easier to clean off the black bitumen, but note that the building is actually made out of Portland stone, which is a brilliant white colour, so it is still stained. It took them 8 years to do this part of the cleaning of it, and to this day, we're still trying to get rid of some of the manure from the inside. So this statue on our right hand side is of Sir Edward Carson, the man who formed that Ulster Volunteer Force back in 1913 we were talking about. Now, in the formation of Northern Ireland, Carson wasn't actually to stay here for very long. Many people thought he might be head of the Parliament here, but he refused the position, and many people thought this is because he was afraid of the IRA. This isn't actually the case. He was afraid of what most men were afraid of, women. He made several promises to the suffragettes, and he said he would be able to keep them. Carson was to come back here 2 times in his life. Once was in 1933 to unveil that statue of himself, and the other time was 1935. This was for his funeral, and it is the largest funeral that has occurred in Northern Ireland. The second largest funeral goes to that of George Best. Clinton was a regular visitor to Stormont, and it is said on his first trip here, College. Now Campbell College is an all-boys school, and it was donated to the city of Belfast by a wealthy yarn merchant. His name was Henry James Campbell. He wanted to give something back to the city of Belfast because he'd made so much money here. His student includes C.S. Lewis, and it is said that the grounds in there actually inspired some of the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. There was also a famous teacher here. His name was Samuel Beckett, the Nobel laureate, but he didn't like teaching here very much. Upon handing in his resignation, the headmaster called him into his office and said, "Mr. Beckett, do you not realise you're giving up the opportunity to teach a career in a hostel?" To which he is said to have replied, "I'm indeed headmaster, though very rich and very thick. I'm off." So he packed his bags and he headed off to France. Targets were the shipyards and the aircraft manufacturing, and to be fair to Luftwaffe, they didn't miss. They put both industries out of commission for over 3 months. The second and third nights were slightly less indiscriminate. This is because they went for the waterworks as well, so that raging fires in the city would be very hard to put out. Also, many houses were damaged. In fact, up to half of the houses in Belfast had some kind of damage done to them. This also left the population of about a quarter of Belfast's population homeless. This was 100,000 out of 400,000 people. Now, the reason so many of them survived because half the houses were attacked was because many of them fled to Cave Hill when they heard the air raid sirens. So by the end of the third night of the Belfast Blitz, over 1,000 people had lost their lives. Now we're going to take the Sydenham bypass back into the centre of Belfast. So I'll just give your ears a wee rest for 5 minutes and rejoin the tour at the D Street Bridge. Thank you much. Floating ship. It is the floating maritime museum and tells the history of the River Lagon from the Ice Age to the present day. As we go around the corner, take a look at this huge metal statue of a lady. She is called the Statue of Harmony. There's an identical statue in Dallas, Texas. If you bring a thing like that to Belfast, though, it's going to get nicknamed. Such nicknames include the Thing with the Ring, Hula with the Hula, and the Door on the Ball. To your right are the Belfast new Lagon-side courthouses. You notice the large glass frontage on it. This wouldn't have happened before the 1998 peace agreements. Now this is on contrast to the next set of buildings coming up on the right hand side. These are the old courthouses. Notice this wall that is on the right hand side now. It's a bomb-proof blast wall. It's 10 feet thick and steel reinforced. Now it was placed here for fear of car bombs being driven into the courthouse during the Troubles. The old courthouse finished construction in 1933 and was originally to be sited up next to Stormont buildings. But they were lacking funding and it was cheaper to place it here in the city centre. But to our left now is St George's Market, finished construction in 1896, and this is one of the few Victorian markets still working today. Its opening days are Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and you'll be able to get anything in there from a button to a crocodile burger, along with some of Belfast's local characters. So we're going to turn right onto Victoria Street, so named after Queen Victoria. Now Queen Victoria was to come here in 1849, this is why there are so many streets named after her. And we hoped that she would give us a city charter. She didn't like Belfast very much though. In fact, she only stayed for 4.5 hours. And it wasn't until 1888 that we were to get our city charter. So this red brick building coming up on the right hand side is the old Belfast Town Hall. Now when we got our city charter in 1888, it was thought that this building was a bit too drab. So plans for the new Belfast City Hall were soon drawn up. So as we venture further down Victoria Street, you will get another look at the Albert Memorial clock coming up on the right hand side. So note that the 4 o'clock faces actually tell different times, and not one of them is correct. So on our left hand side as we turn the corner is St George's Church. And it was finished construction in 1816, and it is the site where the oldest church in Belfast has been. There has been a church here since 1306. So we're back onto High Street with the river faucet flowing beneath us, and as I said, it was an open river up until 1836. And on your left hand side, try and notice some of the entryways we have. Now drunken sailors would have got up their ships on either side of High Street here and gone down these entryways, usually stumbling into a pub and stumbling back out again. So off High Street onto Bridge Street, so named because it used to be a bridge over the River Farset. And it was on this street that a man named James Murray was to invent milk of magnesia. So we've now turned onto Donegal Street. This is the first part of the Cathedral Quarter of Belfast. Now if you're looking for traditional Irish music on your stay in Belfast, look no further than the John Hewitt bar coming up on the right. It's a green building. They play traditional music in there most nights of the week. Attached to it is the newsletter, the oldest Anglican newspaper in print in Northern Ireland. Now to your right, what the quarter is named after is St Anne's Cathedral. It's built out of stone from all 32 counties of Ireland. Near to the wall, on your right hand side, as we pass it, you will be able to see what is the largest Celtic cross in the world. Look further up from it, you'll be able to see a large metal spike. This is called the Spire of Hope. The Spire of Hope was placed here to commemorate those who lost their lives in the 9/11 attacks. On the right hand side is the Irish News. Street. And like I said, Lagon Street is to Belfast, that's such a complete street. On the right hand side here is St. Patrick's Chapel. The chapel finished construction in 1877. And there was a very famous painter from Northern Ireland who was baptised here. His name was Sir John Lavery. And on his death he left much of his work to the chapel. And 3 of the paintings have recently been valued at £1.5 million each. This building on the right hand side, established in 1774, is the old Belfast poorhouse. And the concept of this was simple. If you needed some food and you were too poor to afford it, you could go and work in there and they would feed you. It was run by a family called the McCrackens. And there's a mass grave in there for 7,000 people who starved during the Irish potato famine. And indeed, this is whenever this building would have seen most of its work. This is from the years of 1847 to 1849. Now, during the Irish potato famine, 1 million people died, and a further 1 million fled to America. Roundabout here coming up ahead of us, there is a metal flame. This metal flame is to celebrate the coming to Belfast of pre-revolutionary Russian Jews. Now, believe it or not, they came to Belfast to escape religious persecution. But they had only one question to answer on their arrival here, and that was, are you a Protestant Jew or are you a Catholic Jew? Also on that roundabout there was a security camera. Now this was the first bulletproof security camera in the world. But you are right outside the Mater Inforum Hospital. It was built in 1883 and run by a group of nuns called the Sisters of Mercy. It was to be handed over to the National Health Service in 1974. The absolute shame of Belfast, it's the Crumbling courthouse. It is insane. It was built in 1850, but it was closed because of several acts of vandalism and fires. Now if you look to the very top of it, you will see a statue. The statues on the top of all courthouses in the United Kingdom hold the scales of justice. Notice that they are missing. This is because when the building was closed, a young man actually climbed up onto the top of the building and stole the scales of justice and sold them on eBay for around £230. Now across the road from that building was the Crumbling Jail. It was built in 1846 again by Charles Lanyon. The Crumbling Jail would have seen executions up to the year 1961. But back to the courthouse. During the Troubles in Northern Ireland, it operated a deadlock court system. Now this is one where a judge and a judge alone would decide if you were innocent or guilty. Also, they would decide the length of your sentence. So we're going to head into what are known as the Belfast, into the Shanghai Bonfire. Northern Ireland and think the divide here is on a religious basis. This is actually not the case. It is a political divide. There are 2 groups. First off, the Shanghai group here. They are a unionist group of people and would like to see the 6 counties of Northern Ireland remain a part of the United Kingdom. Opposite to that are a group called the Nationalists. We'll be visiting the Falls Road, which is a nationalist area, and they went to see a united Ireland, so the 6 counties of Northern Ireland returned to the Republic of Ireland. right as we go through these crossroads here. See the full length of the Shanghai Road. Well, we'll be driving down the whole stretch of it in a few moments. But first of all, we're going to go and visit one of Belfast's peace walls. The area of Shanghai gets its name from the Irish for Old Church, and has been recorded history here since around 455 AD, making it one of the oldest areas in Belfast. So as we turn around the corner left here, straight ahead of us, you will see one of Belfast's 22 peace walls. Not unlike any other wall in, for example, in Germany, this wall is not here to completely segregate the two communities. As we turn to the right-hand side, the left here now, and you will be able to see the peace gate. And these gates are open most of the day. They are closed at 8 o'clock at night, and opened again at 6 AM in the morning. This is to ensure no late night trouble occurs in any of the two areas on either side of the wall. Yeah, at night time, yeah. Really far on, yeah. This peace wall has recently been host to a Graffiti Arch competition, and many people from all over the world come here to sign the peace wall. That's it. The wall wasn't always this high. It was originally built because they thought if you couldn't see over the wall, you wouldn't be able to shoot over the wall. But after this, people started hurling objects over the wall, so it got higher and higher. If you look to this terracotta structure on the left-hand side, you can see the words of some of the famous people. First of all was the Dalai Lama: open your arms to change, but don't lose your values. Look to this red face on our left hand side. This commemorates Belfast's industrial heritage. And finally, other places of conflict in the world: Israel, Palestine, Shanghai Falls, Nicosia, Baghdad and Berlin. Bill Clinton has also signed the wall, and he says strength and wisdom are not opposing values. But my favourite message on the wall has to be that of an Australian tourist. He says peace starts with a barbecue. Come to Australia. So coming up on our left hand side is the site of where the Shanghai Bonfire was. Now this was on the 11th of July, and it would have stood twice the height of any of the houses in this area. Now these are lit up because in 1690, the 12th of July 1690, King William of Orange defeated King James II at the Battle of the Boyne. But on the 11th night, the King William of Orange needed a way to rally his troops together. Now he did this by way of bonfire. They stacked up all the wood they could find and lit it, and troops were able to rally from miles around. So we're at the top of the Shanghai Road now. Sometimes gets very busy, so it's hard for the bus to slow down. Anybody looking for pictures of murals, get your cameras ready. So the first two coming up on our right hand side, attached to this E. Brown building. The first is up at Paramilitary UVF, and over your right hand shoulder will be one for the Red Hand Commando. The next two are coming up on our left hand side after the shot called Glovers. There again of the paramilitary UVF. There are also another two over your shoulder as we pass. Down where it says Citizens Advice Belfast, look to the right on this street and you'll be able to see 5 murals over your shoulder. The transition of the UVF. Take a look to your left, you'll see the Courtfront Union. Until 1993, this was a fish and chip shop and it was the site of the Shanghai bombing. 9 people lost their lives. On your right hand side is the Shanghai Memorial Gardens. This is for those who gave their lives in the 36th Ulster Division in the First World War. Similarly, on the right hand side, another mural, the Ulster Tower. It is there for the same cause. Murals on the right and the left in just a second. On the right is a mural for the 36th Ulster Division, but to your left, attached to the Rex Bar, the oldest bar in the Shankill, is the Somme Archway. And over your left hand shoulder is a mural of Sir Edward Carson signing the Ulster Covenant. Just before Iceland here on the right is the Bayardo Memorial for those who lost their lives in the Bayardo bombing. Coming up is the most graphic mural on the other side of Iceland on the right hand side. It is a photographic mural showing where lots of bombs went off in this area of the city. Now we've seen various murals of the UVF. This is the paramilitary UVF in this area and is not to be confused with the UVF set up by Sir Edward Carson in 1913. They have absolutely no ties and it doesn't matter how many First World War soldiers they paint on their murals. Side is the Shanghai Leisure Centre. You might be wondering why I'm pointing out a leisure centre. Well, it's because amenities such as this and libraries had to be duplicated on either side of the police wall. You'll be able to see its twin when we reach the Falls Road. To our right, mostly over your shoulder now here in front of us is the last mural, Shanghai Original Belfast. 5. All this talk of how military groups and bombings, you might think Belfast is a very unsafe area. This actually isn't the case. Belfast City has been voted the safest capital city to walk around for tourists in all of Europe, and indeed the second safest in the world, coming next to Tokyo. see that we are on the other side of it and see how close the houses in this community actually are to it. So straight ahead, soon to be on the left hand side is the Divis Tower. Now this is where some of the bloodiest battles would have occurred during the Troubles. In fact, so bloody the British Army felt it prudent to take over the top 2 floors of the building in 1974. Actually felt under surveillance all the time and never really welcomed them. But they were to move out in 2005 as part of the normalisation process. But coming up on your left hand side is St Congle's Primary School. It's the site of the first gun battle in the Troubles. Now if you look to the building you can see where many of the bullets have pierced the wall. 8 people were injured during this, and only 2 of them were gunmen. Now the other shots came from a street on our right hand side, actually blocked by a wall, called Percy Street. But on the right hand side here is what is known as the International Wall. Now it is a selection of murals in which people who Falls Road want to show their support. They read mainly self-explanatory apart from Picasso's Guernica there, which is an anti-war mural. So here we are coming up on our right hand side, the twin of the Shanghai Leisure Centre, Falls Road Leisure Centre. But on our left hand side is a memorial to the company IRA. You look, you'll be able to see their names inscribed in the middle. And the Irish tricolor flying high. Now there's 3 colours, green, white and orange. The green is for the more nationalist or Catholic community, the orange for the more Protestant or Unionist, and the white in the middle is green for peace between the two. Saoirse on the top of it, which is Irish for freedom. The second one is the most photographed mural in the entire world. It is that of Bobby Sands. He was the first of the 10 hunger strikers to lose their lives in 1981. Now the hunger strikers were striking for political status as prisoners, and it wasn't until 10 of them gave their lives that they got this. What is known as the Gale top quarter of Belfast. This is where Irish is taught as a first or second language in many schools, and some people speak it as a first language. Also, if you look at some of the street signs or street names, you will see that they are in English and in Irish. But to our left is Dunville Park. Now Dunville Park used to be the site of a whiskey factory. But with Prohibition being brought into America, the demand for whiskey dried up. So the factory was closed down, but the land was left to the city of Belfast on one condition, that was that it always remained a park. Coming onto a road called Broadway, if there's anybody who likes singing, now's your chance. On your right hand side is the Royal Victoria Hospital. That is the largest hospital in all of Belfast. It was the first building in the world to be fitted with air conditioning. 1970s, it was a teaching hospital. This was so doctors from all over the world could come around and operate on fresh bullet wounds and raw wounds of patients. It is also where the man named Professor Michael was to invent the portable defibrillator. This is the machine that stops your heart during cardiac arrest and lets your body re-establish a rhythm for your heart. left-hand side here is one of Northern Ireland's highly fortified police stations. These fortifications were necessary during the Troubles. If you're on the top of the bus, if you look into the back of it, you can see many armoured Land Rovers. Now these Land Rovers are bulletproof and bomb-proof. They have skirts on the bottom so that nobody can throw anything underneath them. And they were most recently interlocked to the police service in England to help out with the rioting going on there at the moment. Became such a regular occurrence, the hotel actually used to give commemorative ties to visitors who were staying when a bomb went off. And indeed, one American tourist wanted to stay until he got one and waited 5 to 6 weeks. Keep an eye to the right hand side, you see a mural for the sandy beach which we're about to head up to. As you can tell from this, it is a unionist area, and if you look down at the curbstones, you can see that they are painted red, white and blue. This is a form of tribal marking, but it's not exclusive to the unionist areas. It also extends into the nationalist areas, although the colour scheme changes a bit. This is also where snooker legend from here, Alex the Hurricane Higgins, two-time world champion, was to learn his art of playing snooker. Now he also returned here and lived out his last days in a building called New Lydia House, which we will see at the very top of the road. Those of you looking at pictures of murals, get your cameras out again. Be coming up on our right hand side in one moment. Now these are the two worst placed murals in all of Belfast. Parts of the late great George Best. Attached to it is one for a paramilitary group. Now many people come to the conclusion that George Best has some affiliation with this group upon saying this. This is not the case at all. In fact, George Best did his best to stay away from Irish politics altogether. So on our left is Lydia House, and over your shoulder you can see a mural for Alex the Hurricane Higgins, People's Champion. Now if you wanted to enter Belfast in the 1800s from the south side of the city, which is where we now are, you get Belfast, and indeed the ugliest building in Belfast, 9 years running. It is the Belfast City Hospital. We're about to go past the houses on our right hand side here. These belong to the Belfast City Hospital, but they didn't always. In fact, this used to be another one of Belfast's poorhouses and workhouses. But this one was different to the other one that we saw run by the Muckrakens. This one had an asylum in it. So if you refused to work here, they would send you to the asylum, and if you spent 2 days in the asylum, you would go back to work. So we're on the Lisbon Road. When you stay in Belfast, you want to do some shopping. There are lots of boutiques further up the road, and nice places to eat. South side of the city during Troubles was actually one of the more peaceful ends of the city. In fact, there are little to no police walls in this area. is the Anglican Church. This is also the street your tour guide used to live on when he was a student in Belfast. To your left is the Malone Lodge Hotel, very fancy hotel, 4 stars. A few passengers getting on here, folks, just 2 seconds.
Tuesday and Thursday, and I got called by another crowd yesterday, so interview, and what day would Susie give me? Wednesday. Petty Power and some kind of creme globe. Yeah, they weren't going to, I think they weren't going to take me because I called them last week. It's been like 4 weeks since I applied and I heard nothing back.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, we had someone for that role and they dropped out, so now we're considering CVs again. So I think my call came just at the right time.
So what is it?
It's a quantitative analyst role, graduate quantitative analyst. It's kind of programming and stuff. It sounds very much like my CV. The only thing I worry about is if I ever want to go to an American company.
Everyone knows quite hard, especially unfortunately, America's going to quite hard. So
But I was thinking that, be going to some Ned Flanders sort of company, gambling company is where you're at last. So you're working for the mob, eh?
How do you No, it looked really wrong.
Yeah, I think.
Do you have a preference?
I thought now that Petty Power would be the ones who would be most interested in it. Like, I was kind of surprised this crowd even emailed me back. And so quickly, they emailed me back within 3 hours of me emailing them.
Repossessed. This is like a brand new place, and the developer hasn't been in trouble yet, so they're trying to sell it quickly. So instead of buying the house for 320,000, we buy it for 140,000.
But in some cases, I think it wasn't the developer. The fact is, our banks collapsed because it's the property collapse. They went down, so the government owns by and large. It owns my bank, and it owns about half of the
Well, actually, the IMF owns your bank, probably.
It's rather unfortunate.
You should know, you're the finance person.
Well, yeah, it's all gone into NAMA,
Yeah, which is now one of the largest property owners in the world now.
Yeah. Basically, there was such debt in the world, or in Ireland, around banks. All the property that the banks were repossessing kept
drags down their balance sheet.
kept accumulating, and they didn't know what to do with these things, just couldn't sell it, so then they just split off of that section and called it national.
It may still turn a profit on it though, because it owns a lot of properties in London.
But they bought the portfolio of properties for 66 billion. They get back about 20 billion. They overpaid,
But
they had to overpay.
prices of real estate are still high here, huh?
I think
they're
compared to
still
other
falling a little
countries.
bit, I think, yeah, they're still a bit inflated, I'd say.
But they had been so humongous.
They were ridiculous.
A house down the road from me had been bought 6 years ago for 1.5 million, and they sold it. They only bought it for investment purposes. They sold it a few months ago for 850 after redoing it. They
So they
bought it
took
for
a-
investment
they
purposes.
took a
and
bath
they
on it.
Yeah, they took a loss of $1 million pretty much. Once you include all the renovations.
Yeah, and the real estate goes out.
That's
1.5.
The euro as a means of tying the reunited Germany to France and the rest of Europe. That was kind of the political idea behind it, was to, because they were kind of, once Germany was reunified, they kind of were aware, oh, there's 80 million of them now, so they kind of outnumber us and are economically powerful and could ignore us from now on. Built them all over the coast of the 1500s when they were watching out for the Armada, like it was a way of keeping them, ensuring the Spanish were about to it.
Get you a picture of it.
Shoot. I love that. I've gone across the border and it asked me to match up new times on this. by daylight saving. Yes. I don't know if the time hasn't changed. It's just
they've been gotten rid of, or someone else is taking it up?
the English are getting rid of it, and I don't know what that's going to mean for Ireland, because it doesn't make sense for us to go to Central European time. We're too far west.
Are they getting rid of it?
They are, yeah.
Definitely.
Really? They're
They're moving their country off GMT, which is kind of... Hello? I know. Hello. Sorry, my phone was in the pocket. I didn't hear you calling. I'll be